Chapter 4. How to smash this racket. Well, it is a racket, all right. A few profit and the many pay. But there is a way to stop it. You can't end it by disarmament conferences. You can't eliminate it by peace parleys at Geneva. Well-meaningless, impractical groups can't wipe it out by resolution. It can be smashed effectively only by taking the profit out of war. The only way to smash this racket is to conscript capital and industry and labour before the nation's manhood can be conscripted. 1 month before the government can conscript the young men of the nation, it must conscript capital and industry and labour. Let the officers and the directors and the high-powered executives of our armament factories and our munitions makers and our shipbuilders and our airplane builders and the manufacturers of all the other things that provide profit in wartime, as well as the bankers and the speculators, be conscripted to get $30 a month, the same wage as the lads in the trenches get. Let the workers in these plants get the same wages as all the workers, all the presidents, all the executives, all the directors, all the managers, all the bankers, and yes, all the generals and all the admirals and all the officers and all the politicians and all the government office holders, everyone in the nation, be restricted to a total monthly income, not to exceed that paid to the soldier in the trenches. Let all these kings and tycoons and masters of business and all those workers in industry and all our senators and governors and majors pay half of their monthly $30 wage to their families and pay war risk insurance and buy Liberty bonds. Why shouldn't they? They aren't running the risk of being killed or having their bodies mangled or their minds shattered. They aren't sleeping in muddy trenches. They aren't hungry. The soldiers are. Give capital and industry and labour 30 days to think it over, and you will find by that time there will be no war. That will smash the war racket. That and nothing else. Maybe I am a little too optimistic. Capital still has some say. So capital won't permit the taking of the profit out of war until the people, those who do the suffering and still pay the price, make up their minds that those who elect to office shall do their bidding and not that of the profiteers. Another step necessary in this fight to smash the war racket is the limited plebiscite to determine whether the war should be declared. A plebiscite is not of all the voters, but merely of those who would be called upon to do the fighting and dying. There wouldn't be very much sense in having a 76-year-old president of a munitions factory, or the flat-footed head of an international banking firm, or the cross-eyed manager of a uniform manufacturer plant, all of whom see visions of tremendous profits in the event of war, voting on whether the nation should go to war or not. They never would be called upon to shoulder arms, to sleep in a trench, or to be shot. Only those who would be called upon to risk their lives for their country should have the privilege of voting to determine whether the nation should go to war. There is ample precedent for restricting the voting to those affected. Many of our states have restrictions on those permitted to vote. In most, it is necessary to be able to read and write before you may vote. In some, you must own property. It will be a simple matter each year for the men coming of military age to register in their communities as they did in the draft during the World War and be examined physically. Those who could pass, and who would therefore be called upon to bear arms in the event of war, should be eligible to vote in a limited plebiscite. They should be the ones to have the power to decide, and not a Congress few of whose members are within the age limit and fewer still of whom are in physical condition to bear arms. Only those who must suffer should have the right to vote. A third step in this business of smashing the war racket is to make certain that our military forces are truly forces for defence only. At each session of Congress, the question of further naval appropriation comes up. The swivel chair admirals of Washington, and there are always a lot of them, are very adroit lobbyists, and they are smart. They don't shout that, "We need a lot of battleships to war on this nation or that nation." Oh no. First of all, they let it be known that America is menaced by a great naval power. Almost any day, these admirals will tell you, the great fleet of this supposed enemy will strike suddenly and annihilate this many people. Just like that. Then they begin to cry for a larger navy. For what? To fight the enemy? Oh no, for defence purposes only. Then, incidentally, they announce manoeuvres in the Pacific. For defence? The Pacific is a great big ocean. We have a tremendous coastline in the Pacific. Will the manoeuvres be off the coast 200 or 300 miles? Oh no. The manoeuvres will be 2,000, yes, perhaps even 3,500 miles off the coast. The Japanese, a proud people, of course, will be pleased beyond expression to see the United States fleet so close to Nippon shores. Even as pleased as would be the residents of California, were they to dimly discern through the morning mist the Japanese fleet playing at war games off Los Angeles. The ships of our Navy, it can be seen, should be specifically limited, by law, to within 200 miles of our coastline. Had that been the law in 1898, the Maine would never have gone to Havana Harbour. She would never have been blown up. There would have been no war with Spain, with its attendant loss of life. 200 miles is ample, in the opinion of experts, for defence purposes. Our nation cannot start an offensive war if its ships can't go further than 200 miles off the coastline. Planes might be permitted to go as 500 miles from the coast for purposes of reconnaissance, and the army should never leave the territorial limits of our nation. To summarise, 3 steps must be taken to smash the war racket. We must take profit out of war. We must permit the youth of the land who would bear arms to decide whether or not there should be war. And we must limit our military forces to home defence purposes. Very good points, aren't they? We come to the final chapter.